Well, yes, I am the pastor for web ministries at the Forest Lake Church. I need to make that distinction because there's a pastor for media ministries, and she would not be happy if I were taking her title. Anyway, we're a congregation of about 3,800 in Orlando, Florida, and the house where Mickey lives. And I've been there now for about 7 years. I started as a volunteer. I was a pastor a long time ago, left the ministry, came back, and combined my experience as a pastor along with my experience in technology. I'm a network administrator as well, and God allowed me to put those two together, and so I'm now really basically a pastor for technology. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about streaming. And in following with where we've already been in terms of last night's presentation and what Celeste was just talking about as well, my main question is, what story does your stream tell? Now, in the U.S., we have this saying, this is sort of a child's rhyme that says, you scream, I scream, we all scream for ice cream. Well, I kind of tweaked that a bit and said, you stream, I stream, we all stream. And it seems like that's a trend right now. Everybody wants to stream. We have to be streaming our services. We have to be online. We have to be, streaming everything we do. We have to be archiving it and so forth. My question is that really the case? Do we need to stream, first of all? And secondly, once we do, what are we saying with our streaming? What I find is, well, first let me start with every presentation. This is where I would insert a quote, from Abraham Lincoln or Mahatma Gandhi or something like that about the awesomeness of the internet. Well, I couldn't find one, so, but my presentation theme said I needed to have a quote here, and I didn't find one. But anyway, I have a cartoon. And instead, and in the first scene, the person is triumphantly typing away, and they've been able to accomplish 2,565 characters with 0 mistakes. However, someone has come along now in the second scene, and they have a spectator, and they begin critiquing their spelling. And now they've managed to arrive at 12 characters and 1,495,102 mistakes because someone is watching. That's the difference. So my question to you then is, if you are streaming, now someone is watching, is it making a difference in what you do? I would say it should. But unfortunately, I've seen many congregations where I've watched their stream, and it appears to be something that might be best described as voyeuristic. Now, I'm not seeing this from the context of it being somehow salacious or some of sexual content. But one of the definitions of voyeuristic is watching someone who is unaware that you are watching them. And what I find many times when people are streaming is they are unaware that someone is watching them. Or at least they seem to act that way. They get a camera, a single camera, they lock it down with a single straight shot of the stage, and that's it. They're now streaming. I watched a service once where they had exactly that. One camera locked down, pointed at the stage, and it was just left on during the entire Sabbath morning. And what was interesting about that is that, for my mind at least, is it wasn't just a shot of the stage, but it was a shot of this area beside the stage where there was a door. And my mind went to, what's with this door? Because people kept going in and out of it the entire time, and you could see into the lobby or whatever was beyond. My mind's going, what is over there? What's beyond that door? I'm paying no attention to what's on the platform. I'm curious about the door. Because no one has been paying any attention to what their stream is about. What's going on here? What story are we telling with our streaming? So instead, it ends up being rather voyeuristic. Oh, I have a GIF here. This is happy penguins. Anyway, so there's a group of happy penguins there. But question, this makes me think of this though. First of all, when you are streaming, are you happy that people are watching you? Are you welcoming them? Are you welcoming them to your stream? Are you welcoming them to your service? This takes time, and it feels a little weird for some people, because I've had to spend several years now with the various people in our congregation, either lay members or pastors, because we have several on our staff, to get them used to getting up front and when they welcome people to church, actually welcoming those online, because they don't see them. Where are they? For some, I actually will tell them, look at the camera with the tally light. That's where they are. They're right there. Talk to them. Others, they don't feel comfortable talking straight to the camera, so they'll just sort of talk in this general kind of You can't help it. But anyway, they look like they're off in space somewhere talking to the people out there somewhere. But no, they're right there in that camera. Just watch the tally light. Are you welcoming people? Are you actually acknowledging that they're there? One Sabbath I did an experiment in a sermon when I was preaching, and I set my phone down on the pulpit so you could hear it vibrating. And I said, I want you to do this. All of you who are online watching right now, in about 15 minutes, I'm going to ask you to send me a text message. And here's what I want you to have in the text message. And then I continued with my sermon. And then I said, okay, now I want you to send the text message. And immediately my phone started vibrating. And I started seeing messages come in. I just started reading them. Greetings from such and such. Greeting from such and such a place. Greetings from such and such a place. And all of a sudden the congregation realized that there was an entire other congregation that was watching at the exact same time. Are you welcoming people? Are you happy to see them? A number of years ago, in the U.S., there was a comedy program called I Love Lucy. This is Lucy and her husband, Desi Arnaz, Lucille Ball, Desi Arnaz. Now, Desi Arnaz spoke with a rather heavy Cuban accent. And so it's kind of become something that people will often make fun of to this day. Because when Lucy would get in trouble, which happened in every episode, she was always getting herself in some horrible situation, some real bind, and she would always try and explain her way out, and her explanation was worse than the situation that she was in. And then Desi would be the one who have to come along and say, "Explain this to me, Woosie. Explain this to me." And then they would go through this whole thing, and she'd, I don't know what I was doing, and so forth and so on. And that was the humor of the show. And she was also a very good physical comedian as well. I would ask you the same thing with your stream. Are you explaining what you're doing? Are you explaining what you're doing? When you get up front, or when people get up front in your church service, for example, do they start using acronyms that mean nothing to someone who's not in the building? Do you start saying things like, we will be having our potluck in the UYC? Well, that only makes sense at the Forest Lake Church. But if you're watching the Forest Lake Church stream, you may not know that the UYC is the Upper Youth Center. And that there's actually an Upper Youth Center and a Lower Youth Center in a building that's called the Youth Center. You don't know that. But if you just start standing up in front and saying, okay, we're going to have a meeting tomorrow night in the UYC, and then you keep right on going, those who are watching online, especially if they're not members at Forest Lake, not attenders there, they don't know what you're talking about. What's the UYC? Explain yourself. Don't just use terms that only mean something to the people who are physically sitting there. I have to work with this myself because we have things going on in our congregation that are physically in the building. There's something in a lobby somewhere. There's a display somewhere on a board. And I have to stop and say, okay, hold it. This is going to be in the west lobby for those of you who are here. But for those of you who are joining us online, you will find a link for it on our website at such and such. Explain that. Acknowledge that they're there. And don't just use terms that make sense only to you. Perhaps at times you may not even be able to use Adventist jargon, or at least explain it. At least acknowledge that there might be people who don't know what your terms are, and then use those and explain those. Angles and flow. This would be a good time to plug Dan Weber's workshop, for example, on camera use and how to use cameras and how to work through it with your AV team so that your camera work has some sort of flow to it. So that you have, well, here's what I would say. First of all, if you are thinking about streaming and you haven't yet, and you have enough money for one camera, just wait some more until you have at least 2 cameras, preferably 3. And maybe you have to decide, we could really like to have that $2,000, 1,500-pound camera, but we could get 2 700-pound cameras. Maybe you should just get 2 700-pound cameras instead of that nice 1,500 one. Because you'll actually then be able to have more than one angle, more than one position, more than one place to go. Right now in this room we have 3. 1 here, 2 straight on. One's a close shot, one's a wider shot, I would imagine. And this one's probably perhaps a close-up shot. Why is that? Because you have different angles. And a director is able to create flow between those camera shots. I'm not going to steal all your stuff. You're able to create flow between that so that it looks interesting. It's not just the camera locked down pointing straight at the stage. And then the only thing interesting is when somebody walks onto the platform and walks off or falls asleep, as the case might be. You need to be able to create interest. The experience for the person online is different than the experience of the person in the church. When you're sitting in the pew, when you're walking down the aisle, when you're going through the lobby, whatever it is, you can move around. You can change position. Your eyes can move. Your face can move. And you can see different things all at the same time. The person online only has what you show them. They have nothing else. So you're the one that's controlling that. You're the one that's after that flow. So what story are you telling with your angles and your flow? What's happening there? Is it always just the same shot? Is it always just the same thing? Here's the speaker, here's the piano player. Here's the speaker, here's the piano player. Is that all there is? Or are you doing something a bit more creative? And it's amazing what can happen when you get that side angle, that second or third camera somewhere else. So think about that. What are your angles? What is the flow that you're using? There was a man, he actually died not too long ago, by the name of Billy Mays. Billy Mays was the king of promotional commercials. They call them infomercials. And he would often be on late night television or channels that not everybody watches that much, that were lower cost channels. And Billy Mays was the master of selling things. That was his job. He would sell all sorts of things. He was known for his style and his flow. And he would go on and on about this product that he was trying to sell. I have this great thing, and it cleans this wonderful whatever. And it's, and it takes out all kinds of stains. And it's the most wonderful thing you could ever own. I don't know why you haven't bought it already. And it's only $19.95. It was always $19.95. It's $19.95. But wait. If you order right now, in the next 5 minutes, we will send you not one, but 2 of these products. And then he would go on about that, but wait, there's more. Wait, there's more. If you order in the next 5 minutes, we'll also send you this amazing sponge that cleans up all these messes that you're going to be using this cleaning product for, and so forth. And his line was always, but wait, there's more. The person who is watching online should experience more than what the congregation experiences. By that I mean there should be content for the online viewer that does not exist for the person sitting in the pew. For example, everyone in the pew has to turn in their Bible to look at the passage. Why don't you put it on the screen? Everyone in the pew has to take out the hymnal to sing the words. Why don't you have the words on the screen? Everyone in the pew has to sit there and watch the pastor speak. Why can't you reference the sermon notes? Why not have extra content? In our church, we created something called the Delwin video, named after somebody. The Delwin video is a 30-second clip that features some guy talking and welcoming people to church. And we have about 7 or 8 of them now. And we literally do not start our church service in the building until the Delwin video has shown online. And then we start the church service. Now, the people in the church are just sitting there, watching, whatever's happening. There's some commercials, some slides showing, a little music playing in the background. They have no idea the online people are being entertained by this handsome gentleman, welcoming them to the worship service, giving an email address and going on and so forth. And then all of a sudden the stage director, the floor director, points to the organist and the organist plays. But what's been happening online is there's a video welcoming those people specifically to church. That doesn't show in the sanctuary. Unless you ever attend the Forest Lake Church online, you have no idea that exists because it's for the online audience only. At the end of the program, our AV team will run credits. And again, something that only the online people see. The credits roll. It shows who was participating, who the AV team members were, so forth. Just a little quick roll at the end. Content that only the online congregation sees. There should be exclusive content for your online audience. There should be more for them. Now, I would also add that anything you have available to your church members should also be available on your website for your online people. And then reference it. The church bulletin, the church announcements, the flyers, and so forth. That should all be available to church members or online attenders. And so basically the bottom line for me is that really the online audience should experience as much as possible nothing but the finest. It shouldn't just be a camera that's turned on, locked down, and then you walk away. Yeah, that accomplishes the fact that you can see what happens on the platform. But really, when you think about it, when you go to a church, you don't just sit and look at the platform, do you? Hopefully you look around to other people. During the service, you maybe glance over here and see who's sleeping or who's talking, whatever. Why not have something like that? Well, maybe not the sleeping and talking part, but something like that with your stream. Have a camera set so that you can do a crowd shot. So you can actually see people sitting there nodding, not asleep, but nodding in agreement when the pastor's preaching. People smiling, people singing. I mean, why is it always just a shot of the stage? Include other things and show angles and directions, because that's part of being the finest. That's what you would want. And I mentioned this already a bit, but there was a time when the way you were supposed to do passwords was to substitute numbers for letters. And see, it was called elite speak. Elite speak. It was something that came out of gaming. And many times it seems that our website content is some sort of elite speak. It only makes sense to those who have only been an Adventist for their whole life. But along with this, then the same is true for church members, or for people rather who are attending online. We get up front and we talk about what's happening in our church, but we don't make that information available to people who might not actually be at our church. We use an elite sort of way of talking. We don't provide that information for them. Here's sort of and I found this church bulletin that was posted online. I just did a search for church bulletin images, and lo and behold, one that's in Loma Linda, California showed up from actually 2013. I don't know why it was so high on the search results, but anyway, it's there. And I found it interesting in several ways. You can't see it here because it's probably too small, but it's an Indonesian church. And first of all, their bulletin, they just take the bulletin and they just put a PDF up, so it's kind of backwards as to the way I imagine it's actually folded. But you still get the content. Certain announcements in this bulletin are in Indonesian, and certain ones are in English. And there's kind of a pattern. You start reading, and certain ones that are focused on older people in the congregation, those are in Indonesian. The ones for the youth, they're in English. This church has taken the effort to communicate to more than one language group through their bulletin, and then they post this online, and it's available for anyone. The number 2 and 3 most popular links on our website are to our bulletin and our announcements. First one is to our stream, and the second two are announcements and bulletin. Ahead of giving online, ahead of the calendar, ahead of anything else, that's what people click on the most. Now, just as an aside, I don't know who's responsible for these sorts of things that we get. I think it comes out of communications, but I'm not really sure. But if you're involved in communications in some sort of conference, union, whatever level, it'd be really great if we got PDFs of those bulletin inserts. The ones that you get by the case with the beautiful color, all that kind of thing. You try and stick a odd size paper to your size of your bulletin, and try and stuff them in there and they stick out and so forth. We get a lot of those. And we aren't able to use them a lot of times because either they are just such an odd size, they don't fit. But what would be really great is if we had those as PDFs so I could post them to our website. Maybe someday we'll just not have to ship a box of those. We can just say, here's the PDF. That'd be great. I know you have one because, it's all digital. So I know there's somewhere, there's a PDF of that file. It'd be great to get those as a local church. Yes, we'll continue to put the ones in the bulletin, but it'd be nice if we had PDFs as well.
Sorry.
Yes?
I don't get it.
You don't get what?
I work in Sweden. Why do you want my bulletin?
Why do I want your bulletin? If I'm watching your church, why would I want your bulletin? But if I don't understand Swedish, I'm not watching your stream anyway. But someone who does is.
You were speaking in the first person about kind of being the viewer.
Right, exactly. Yes, yeah, no worry, yeah. But if I could learn Swedish, I'm sure your bulletin would be very interesting. Yeah, exactly. So why not? Or maybe I'd see something there that would motivate me to learn Swedish. You never know. Another option, and some churches are considering doing this now, is creating a chat box or a chat forum on your website for your online audience. We've used this, and I have the platform we use right now has a chat window built into it, or that I can embed into our website. And this is something that can be of value in streaming. It's kind of a value added and additional content, exclusive sort of content. The only thing is I found is that while chat may seem interesting, some people aren't comfortable with using it because they feel like they're talking in church. Why am I chatting while the service is going on? You know, I shouldn't be doing that. We don't talk in church. Other people are like, oh, no, that's great. We love it. We text each other in church all the time anyway, so it's great to have a chat window. You know, so there might be some ambivalence about that. Another is that it's helpful if you have someone from your congregation, someone from your team, someone who's kind of connected to the church, who's actually actively involved in the chat. Because sometimes people will ask questions. Hey, how come I can't hear the sound? Why? Who is this person? You know, if your AV team hasn't been doing a good job of identifying who's up front at that point, they may say, well, who's this person that's speaking? That was really good. Who was that? Who is this that was singing? You know, who told that story? You know, whatever it might be. So it's helpful if you're going to do chat, if you're going to have some sort of chat window, if you have someone who can moderate it, who can be there kind of as a regular person. And we're kind of struggling with that right now because I don't have someone to do that, and I can't do it all the time. So just sort of a caveat there if you are going to start using a chat window. And I guess they would need to know Swedish as well, if the case might be. Yeah. Just a note on special events. Obviously, we stream our church services. We have 3 services on Sabbath morning, and we stream all of them from start to finish, archive all of them from start to finish. Fortunately, the platform that we use for streaming does that automatically, which is great because we don't have to edit them anymore. And then it also cross-posts to Vimeo, which is great, and YouTube. Now, the question becomes, though, what about other services? What about weddings or funerals? Funerals more so than weddings. People usually want to see weddings. Funerals, some people want their funeral streamed, you know, for their family member, and others don't. And we respect that. And some want it archived, and some don't. And the same with musical programs. Usually everybody wants to see the archive of the music program, a special concert, whatever it might be. But maybe you have a copyright issue, so maybe you can't. Where it has become a problem, or where it's been kind of a questionable area for us, is when you stream prayer meeting, other midweek services, sort of, especially prayer meeting. For a while, we were streaming our prayer meeting service. And we started by streaming it every week. And people thought, well, that's, I don't want to participate in prayer meeting if I know it's being streamed. I don't want to share my own personal prayer request or my own personal whatever. And, okay, fine, we compromised. We said, we'll do it the first and third Wednesdays of the month. And that was okay. It was better. People would kind of like, okay, is the camera on tonight? Because then I won't share if it is. And it's not on, okay, great, I will. And then also for those watching online, I was like, well, but what happened to the prayer request from last week? Did that person die? Did they live? I mean, what happened? Because it's been 2 weeks and we don't know. And it's not on the list anymore. What happened to them? So, yeah, in the end, we don't stream our prayer meeting anymore. We decided to just turn it off. It wasn't enough continuity for those who watched online. It was too much information for those who were in the congregation. They didn't want that necessarily always shared. And so in the end, we don't stream it anymore. So those are some of those kind of questions you have to deal with, and you have to kind of work your way through. It's kind of like the young lady who took the selfie at the funeral. How much appropriate is that and how not? Some people may think that's great. I'm a little creeped out with photos with a casket, but that's okay. Some people think that's, it depends on culture perhaps. I don't know. But anyway, so that's the question as well. So I'm back to where I started. What is the story that you are telling with your stream? What are you communicating about not only your congregation, your setting, but the people who are watching? Are they just simply voyeurs? Are they just simply watching someone who's oblivious to the fact that they're being watched? Or are you providing more? Are you giving them something extra? Are you acknowledging that they're there? Are you giving them the acknowledgement that you care about them and that you're glad you're part of that they're there? Thank you.